Welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I am your host, Sam Vicini. We're powered by CLNS Radio, and today's sponsors are the two most valuable apps you can have during the NCAA tournament. You need seats to games, you need places to place bets. MyBookie and SeatGeek have you covered there. Today on the show, we have my old colleague over at CBS Sports, Gary Parrish. GP is going to hate me for introducing him like this, but I'm so lucky I get to call this dude a friend. He's genuinely not only one of the most talented people in the industry, which we're going to talk about in a second, but he is one of the best humans in the industry. He's one of the most connected people in the country, and he's going to have some great insights into how the bracket can be broken down. How you doing, man?
I'm well. I appreciate you saying all that nice stuff. I don't know what percentage of it is actually true. I would say somewhere less than 100% for sure, or at least my wife would tell you that. But either way, thank you. It's good to be here. How you been, buddy?
Oh man, I can't complain. It is it's a lovely day in Los Angeles. It's like 80 degrees outside. I'm out on my balcony recording this podcast. That is how beautiful it is. Is everything good in Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, it's cold, but it's fine. It's like I've got a flight to New York in the morning. I'm less sure that I'm going to get there than I have been in recent weeks. There's a massive blizzard up there now. Maybe I'll get there. But I tell you, every time I go to Southern California, I immediately go, hold up. Why do people choose not to live here? And I understand cost of living would probably be the main thing, but wow, I mean, it's just beautiful every single day. Like I never really grasped until there was a time a few years ago where I spent 2 straight weeks in LA. And so you wake up every day and you've got that every day, and it's like, yo, this is really nice. Like, I don't understand why I don't live here. And then you start looking into houses your size in Southern California, and you go, okay, that's it. That's why I don't live there. But it is, I'm jealous. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I saw that like Bill Simmons' buddy, Cousin Sal, the guy who's on like Jimmy Kimmel Show, is either giving away like $1 million for a perfect bracket, or he's giving away his house. And I'm just like, take the house. For the love of God, take the house. You will make so much more money if you take the house. Yeah, no, but for me and Laura, I mean, we just, need an apartment right now with our dog, our 2 cats. We're happy having, the apartment that we got.
Yeah, we had some friends who moved out there. One of my wife's best friends moved to LA several years ago, and they live near us. And for folks who don't know, I live it's a suburb of Memphis, but it's technically in North Mississippi. And so we go out to visit them, and I know the house that they had here. And we go out to visit them there, and the house is like a fraction of the size, like really maybe a quarter of the size of their home here. And I'm like, man, Kelly, is everything going okay for them? And they're like, oh, no, this is a $900,000 home. Yeah. I'm like, what? Like, seriously? And so I was worried that maybe their finances had taken a turn for the worse. Turned out, no, it's just they lived in Southern California as opposed to Northern Mississippi.
No, genuinely, like, I live like in the middle of Hollywood, and I'll like look up like housing values from time to time, and there's a place like across the street from me. I swear to God, it looks like a rundown shack. It is selling for $700,000, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, to quote you, what are we talking about here?
What are we even talking about? It's a mess. So anyway, I'm envious of your weather, but not of your housing market.
No, definitely not. But before we get into this bracket talk, you are on the Selection Show. I wanted to talk to you about how awesome was it? I mean, I'm so glad that they finally got you on that thing. You are genuinely one of the best people in terms of actually being able to talk about the bracket, being able to entertain people online. It was great to see you up there with Chuck and Ernie. How did that whole thing come about, and how did it go when you were up there?
Yeah, I got it came about pretty quickly. Like, I got a text message from, speaking candidly, my agent early last week, and basically said, hey, I might have something working here. Let me. Are you available? I'm gonna call you in 5 minutes. And so we talked, and he like presented it to me and said, would you be interested in this? At which point I said, what are you talking? Like, would I be interested in being a part of the big selection show in Atlanta with Ernie Johnson and Charles Barkley? And it was supposed to be Kenny Smith as well. There was supposed to be 4 of us there. Kenny's mother is ill, and so he's going to join the coverage going forward, I believe. But he was in New York City with his mother on a Sunday as opposed to in Atlanta with us. But like, yeah, I mean, what an awesome opportunity to even get the invitation to do that. I mean, I started my career as just, I had no aspirations other than to be a newspaper writer. You know, if you'd have told me once upon a time I was going to be the Tiger basketball beat writer for the Memphis Commercial Appeal, I'd have been like, all right, I've done pretty well. And I never envisioned doing radio or podcast. I guess podcast didn't even exist, and certainly not doing television. I tell people all the time, I graduated college in '99, and I majored in journalism, and they suggested to us, okay, well, but what do you want to be? I'm like, I want to be a newspaper writer. Okay, well, then you need to be a journalism major with a newspaper emphasis. And then there was journalism major with a radio emphasis, journalism major with a television emphasis, and then journalism major with a PR emphasis. In other words, like you picked. You didn't like. It never occurred to me to try to learn. I never took a radio class in college or a television class in college. And the idea that, you look up in 2017 and, I do television every week. I have a radio show every day. My writing is probably it's lessened, in recent years because of my other responsibilities. So you never know where any of this stuff is going to go. I never planned for this, but to look up and not so much see myself, but like have my friends or my parents see me on the big show with Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson. Yeah, that's a pretty cool experience, and made even cooler by the fact that, and I said this on my podcast earlier in the week, people watch Ernie and Charles every week, and they have what is widely regarded to be the best studio show of any sport on any network. And I think Ernie comes across as somebody who's just like a gentleman and you'd really like him. And Charles comes across as the most fun guy in the world, like that you'd like to have a drink with. And I can tell you, having done shows in the past with them as well and worked with them and also hung out with them away from the cameras, the way they come across is exactly how they are. Like Ernie is awesome. And Charles is tremendous. And not just with me, with everybody. You watch him walk around that building. And I'm always impressed by this. He knows everybody's name. I mean the production assistants, the runners, the custodians. He's talking to everybody, wants to know how everybody's doing. The caterer's there. He wants to walk over there and just say, "Hey, how you been? Good to see you. You been all right?" Like he seems very aware that he's Charles Barkley, and everybody has an image of him, and he doesn't want to do anything to mess up that image with them. He goes out of his way to really make everybody feel comfortable. I recognize that the first time I worked with him, I was reminded of it this past Sunday, and so the whole experience was just awesome.
Yeah, there's one thing though that I know you want to take back. Do you want to apologize to Creighton fans?
Yeah, that was a mess. I was sitting there, and I'm talking about Rhode Island's path to a possible Sweet 16 because I was asked for a sleeper. And first off, for people who don't understand how live television works, the segments can fluctuate in time, and if the F block, for lack of a better phrase, is scheduled for 5 minutes but goes 6.5. They got to get that time back from somewhere. So we have this final I guess it was the next to last segment in the show that was supposed to be however many minutes, and it was cut by 2 minutes. So we don't have any time. And so I'm asked for a sleeper. At the same time, I've got a producer in my ear saying, wrap it up, real quick. And I just got scattered. And so what I was talking about was Rhode Island plays Creighton in the first round. And, Rhode Island's red hot. They're finally healthy. Meantime, Creighton, obviously is missing its point guard, as you know, and everybody knows. And it's so frustrating because I've talked about this a million times. Creighton and Xavier are both Big East schools who both lost their point guards to season-ending injuries. So I said Creighton and then connected to Edmund Sumner instead of Creighton and Mo Watson. And I really didn't even realize it until – and then I talked about Oregon missing Chris Boucher, and I didn't realize it until even after the show. And I was like, oh, my God. I mean, it's not like – I said, I think Syracuse is my sleeper with Syracuse not in the field, right? That would have been like, this was clearly just, I mixed up the two Big East injured point guards. I wish I could have it back, but despite that even, a really fun experience.
Yeah. What do you think the odds are or the odds that you could have gotten were that you would screw up someone's name versus Charles Barkley before?
I know, right? Well, there's a lesson. Well, there's actually a lesson there, which is, don't even mess with the names. Why do you need the names? Just say Rhode Island's. Just like Charles. I don't think Charles mentioned anybody's name the whole show. So it's like maybe that's the smart way to go about it, right? I mean, I could have just said, hey, yeah, Rhode Island's a 12 seed, but they won 8 straight games. They're finally healthy. They get a diminished Creighton team in the round of 64 if they win it, a diminished Oregon team in the round of 32. I could see them going to the Sweet 16, and it's just a perfect next to last segment. Instead, I tried to get a little specific and in a hurry and just blurted out the wrong name. Like Like, there's no excuse for it. I'm merely explaining it. It was. I'd have rather not said that.
We need a new segment idea where just like whenever you have some downtime, you need something fun. Just have Charles Barkley try and name dudes on college basketball teams.
Well, you know what? Like,
and not that, like, I don't hate Chuck by any means, but like it's gonna be pretty funny.
They actually did something similar to that on the TNT shows, where they would put a player on the screen, like a name, and they would ask Charles, who's this person
play for? Yeah,
and they made a goof out of it because he doesn't know. And the great thing for Charles is that he doesn't pretend to know,
right.
And it doesn't matter that he knows at all. The only thing that I positive from that experience is that when people were writing reviews of the show, they pointed out that Adam Zucker missaid something leading into the transitioning from the pre-selection show to the selection show, and that Clark Kellogg apparently said Villanova won the Big Ten tournament as opposed to the Big East. The great news for me is most people watching the selection show, like literally 95% of the people, don't have any idea who Edmund Sumner is. So it's like it's funny. The only people who really seem to have noticed were Creighton fans, Xavier fans, and like hardcore basketball fans. Yeah. But I was talking to somebody else. I was like, man, I hope my bosses didn't, like, I bet they're cringing. They're like, dude, your bosses have no idea who Edmund Sumner is. It's not a problem. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's what I hope it's true.
Oh, man. The last thing I want to talk to you about before we get into the bracket is, LaVar Ball has been in the news this entire season, and especially over the last month or so. I remember when we were at CBS together, you wrote the first LaVar Ball thing. It was a national story. So I kind of wanted to get your impression of what LaVar's deal is, because, I'm someone that's been out here in LA and I've met him before, and he's very much the same person when you meet him one-on-one as he is in all of these interviews and stuff. But I wanted to get your impression of him. And this is I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago or something, right?
Yeah, I think it was 2 summers ago. And you know how it is. We're out in Vegas and we're looking for stories. And I don't mean ooh, this is a really good summer basketball team, let me go write about them. I mean, I'm looking for things that are interesting. And, somebody said, have you seen the Big Ballers play from California? And I was like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. And they said, got this kid Lonzo Ball, he's committed to UCLA, got his 2 younger brothers, they're both on the team. The youngest one is at the time, I think it was 14 years old, maybe 13, 14 years old.
13, yeah.
Yeah, 13 years old, playing 17 and under AAU basketball. And so they said it's 3 brothers, and the mom and dad coach the team. And I said, okay, well, that seems interesting. You got a high, does it check the boxes? You got a high-level recruit, guy going to UCLA, so that helps. You got a big brand, a blue blood prospect, a prospect who's going to a blue blood school, rather. Top 20 player in America, because I think that's about where he was ranked at the time. And mom and dad coach the team. Little brothers are on the team. All right, I'll go check this out. So I watched them, and then you see the style of play, which is unique. I guess questionable, but mostly effective, and either way, unique. And then the mom and dad, not that this is anything other than just an observation, it's a mixed race couple, which is sort of I was just fascinated by the whole deal. And so I said, I'm going to go talk to LaVar Ball. And so I spent about 20 minutes with LaVar and his wife. And I remember walking back over to, I don't know if it might have been you or Jeff Goodman or Matt Norlander or Jeff Perzillo or somebody. And somebody said, so how'd it go with LaVar? And I was like, that was amazing. I've got it. This is going. I don't know if I'll be able to write it well, but I've got the goods. I got what I needed to write an interesting story. And because all the stuff he's saying now, or at least most of the stuff he's saying now, he was saying back then.
Yeah.
Lonzo's going to be great. Lonzo's going to transition, UCLA from a loser to a winner. Lonzo's going to have them as a national championship contender. All my boys are great. And you know what? To date, these last few weeks notwithstanding, because he's gotten wild the last couple of weeks. He wants $1 billion contract. He could have beaten Michael Jordan in 1-on-1. Lonzo's going to be better than Steph Curry. All this stuff is just he's taken it too far. But the confidence he had in himself and his family and his boys has always been there. And I will say, based on as it relates strictly to the stuff he told me. 2 summers ago, which is almost 3 years ago now, I guess. I don't know. But it's all been true. Lonzo, enrolled at a UCLA program that literally lost more games last year than it won. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And he's not the only reason they're a national championship contender, but he is the undeniable main reason they are a national championship contender. He told me his son was going to be great and make UCLA great, and his son is great, and his son has made UCLA great. And I think LaMelo, who when I met him was shorter than me, now he's legitimately 6'5", 6'6". I think he got a chance to be really good in college too. I'm less sure of the middle child, and that's the one that concerns me in this way. LaVar has put in these unbelievable expectations on his children, and Lonzo has been able to live up to it, and LaMelo might as well. But LiAngelo, the middle kid, like LaVar's already called him a one-and-done player. I never want to put a ceiling or a roof on anybody's dreams, but he's not a one-and-done player, or at least he does. If he's a one-and-done player, he'd literally be the first one-and-done player ever ranked outside of the top 100 in his high school class, right? Yeah. So good luck. And I worry what it's going to be like for LiAngelo, because Lonzo can take this. He's awesome. LiAngelo, he's going to be compared to his brother, and his dad's words are going to be thrown right back at him. And trust me when I tell you, it's going to be late November, early December. And people are going to be writing, "What's wrong with LiAngelo Ball? Yeah. He's coming off UCLA's bench and averaging 4 points. What's wrong with and then nothing's wrong with him. He's just not his brother, and he's not what his dad has framed him as. And that's going to be unfortunate. But either way, the family is it's a remarkable family. It's a great story, and like I know you know this. It's all rooted in a good thing.
That's what I think too, and that's the thing I keep saying. It's rooted in them being just an incredibly close family, and they want to have success for each other. It's not rooted in LaVar wanting to usurp his kid's success and ride off of his kid's success, right?
No, I mean that's the thing. I remember talking to LaVar and his wife on that summer afternoon in Vegas, and they did this the opposite way it is usually done when you have big-time basketball talents. Even just one. If you just have Lonzo Ball. If Lonzo Ball were born to different parents, his entire high school career and college recruitment would have gone differently. He'd have bounced around the high schools, gone to a basketball factory, took visits all over the country, played for some big shoe company-funded summer program. Instead, you want to know why they started their own AAU program? And why they made LaMelo play up with LiAngelo and Lonzo? Because they wanted the family to be together. What's better than that? Yeah. They just wanted to be together as a family. So many, and I have friends like this. They have multiple kids who play multiple sports, or sometimes just different, the same sports, but they play, they're just different ages. So dad is with 2 kids at baseball practice, mom's with 1 kid at basketball practice. They're never together, bouncing around. Well, LaVar and his wife decided they didn't want to do that. So they said, here's what we'll do. We'll start our own team. And we'll have all our kids play together. Yeah, but LaMelo's only 13 playing with 17-year-olds, or only 12 playing with 16-year-olds, or only 11 playing with 15-year-olds. Okay, that's fine. He'll just learn to play against older guys, whatever. But we want to be in the same car. We want to be in the same gym. We want to be at the same meals. And, if that's the root of this, to me, that's admirable. A family wanting to be a family and not be divided at all times. They didn't shop themselves around to the biggest and baddest California high school. They played with their neighborhood school, won state championship. They didn't go shop themselves to the Compton Magic or whomever. They just played. They started their own program, and they didn't go out and recruit the best players from California. They just said, "Hey, let's just play with our buddies from the neighborhood, from the town." Yeah. And hey, we're not going to go visit North Carolina and Duke and Kentucky. We're going to UCLA. Why? Because it's UCLA. Because we live in Southern California. Because we don't want our kid all the way across the country. The motivation behind everything, I think, is pretty pure and pretty impressive. If I were advising LaVar, I would say, calm down a little bit, because and I understand it must be intoxicating for him to be able to, every day that he says something, it become a national headline. Yeah. It encourages you to say more. But I do think over the past 48 hours, the $1 billion contract thing, and I could have beaten Michael Jordan in my heyday. It's gone from being wild and confident to just silly. And so if I were advising him, I would say, just take a week off if you can. But either way, it's his mouth and his family. I'll let him handle it how he wants.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel too. You can tell whenever you meet these dudes, they're genuine. They really want what's best for the family. I have no problem with what LaVar is doing. I'm pro LaVar Ball. Are you pro LaVar Ball at this stage?
I'm 100%. I really I like him. I went out to LA. I guess it was December, and so I saw him at Poly, and then saw him again at out in Vegas. And spent some time. I saw LaMelo again, LiAngelo, because I had spent time with all of them, back in Vegas a few years ago. So reacquainted with them and spent probably 20 minutes talking to LaVar. I like the guy. He's a good father. We spend so much time, yelling about absentee fathers and basketball prospects and all sorts of prospects. But it's especially true in basketball. The numbers show this. Too many kids growing up in just impossible situations. Either their father's not around, sometimes they don't know who the father is, and so now we got a man who, did everything the way people say, some often judgmental people, but still judge people, say you're supposed to do it. He met a woman, fell in love, got married, had children, provided for his family, raised his family, was there in his boys' lives every single day. And that's the guy we want to turn into a bad guy? I'm not interested in doing it. I don't agree with everything he does, but at its core, LaVar Ball seems to be a good husband, seems to be a good father, and has raised some children who are undeniably gifted and successful in their chosen sport. They're going to be multimillionaires. At least one of them is very, very soon. If I could raise my family as well as he's raised his, I think I'd be doing a good job.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I'm at on this. And if LaVar Ball needs to go to Phoenix for the Final Four, you know what app he can use?
SeatGeek.
He can use SeatGeek. The college basketball season and NCAA tournament is in full swing. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to your favorite team's games. With SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps. SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There is nothing like being in the stadium for the biggest plays of the year, and SeatGeek will help you get closer to the action for a great value. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone. It's the easiest way I have found to shop for tickets. I can be anywhere in just a few taps. I can find seats instantly and easily. GP, I know that you use SeatGeek to go to concerts and stuff. You are a big concert guy, right?
I enjoy live music. Sure, I don't get out as often as I used to because I'm older. B, I have 3 children and 3 jobs. It's like when you have 3 children and 3 jobs, your free time isn't what it used to be. But sure, I still go to shows all the time, and when I do, I use the SeatGeek app.
Yep, you can use it for sports, movies, concerts, anything like that. Best of all, my listeners get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. To get that $20 rebate, download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab, and click add a promo code. Enter the promo code Game Theory, GameTheory. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Again, that is download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code Game Theory today. Our second sponsor is MyBookie. It is time to talk to you about the boatload of money you can make this week betting at mybookie.ag. If you haven't checked them out yet, this is the perfect time to get into the action. The madness of March is here. Lay down some money and score big on college hoops. Join me and thousands of online players and start betting at mybookie.ag. I would only recommend a service that has been good to me and our listeners. That's why I urge you to make your way to MyBookie. You win, they pay, fast and without hassles. They even have in-game live betting so you can place a bet after tip-off. You are wasting your time anywhere else. Join now and MyBookie will match your first deposit with a 50% bonus. That's right. If you join with $100, they're just going to give you $50 to play with for free. Use the promo code THEORY, THEORY, to activate this offer. Visit MyBookie today. Call 844-900-BETS, BETS. Play, win, and get paid. Gary, now let's talk about this bracket. What is the biggest thing that you are looking forward to in this NCAA tournament? You are one of the best in terms of just kind of contextualizing things and figuring out what the most important thing and most important story is in the NCAA tournament. So let's start there. What is the biggest and best story of this college basketball season?
Well, I think immediately it's going to be Wichita State, right? Because they were drastically underseeded on Selection Sunday. The idea that a team with a top 10 KenPom rating could be a 10 seed based on nothing more than they didn't have enough quality wins without a proper understanding of, okay, but that's because they didn't have quality win opportunities. Like, it was just infuriating to see Mark Hollis, who is someone I like. Like, I had a nice conversation with Mark last Friday up in New York. I like Mark Hollis. I think he's good at his job. I don't understand how they could conclude that Wichita State deserved to be a 10 seed because, I heard him explain it like, well, they only have one win over a team in the field. That's South Dakota State. That is technically true. But then, it's reasonable to then say, okay, but why? Why do they only have one win over a team that's in the field? Well, first off, it's because you didn't put Illinois State in the field. For the same reasons that you dropped the Wichita State all the way down to the 10 line, you knocked Illinois State completely out of the bracket, which I'm not here to fight about. Like, Illinois State had a way worse at-large resume than Wichita State would have. They took some bad losses. They didn't have the metrics behind them. I don't have an issue with Illinois State being left out, but if you would have put Illinois State in, which you could have reasonably done, then suddenly Wichita State's got 3 wins against the field. Beyond that, and I've been over this a million times, and you know it as well as I do. They lost 3 starters, including 2 NBA players. It took them a little while to figure things out. I don't know why it's so hard for folks to understand that if LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh took a little while to figure things out in Miami, and if Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green took a minute to figure things out, remember they got beat by like 1 million on opening night, took a minute to figure things out, why is it so hard to understand that Wichita State might take a minute to figure things out in the year after they lost 3 of their top 4 scorers and 3 starters, including 2 NBA players? The problem, of course, is that if you're Oklahoma State, you can take some time to figure things out because you got opportunity after opportunity in January and February and early March. Same thing with any Power 5 school or Big East school. But if you play in the MVC, you have to have everything figured out from the beginning and take advantage of your at-bats in November and December because you don't get them going forward. In other words, if the barometer, if the bar that the NCAA Selection Committee is setting is wins against the field for Wichita State, and you only have 1, so you're going to have to be a 10 seed. Well, what they're saying is that you've got to do everything you can do before December 18th because Wichita State didn't play another team in the field past December 17th.
Yeah.
That was like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
We're judging a team based on what they were 3 months ago. So they got better. Your eyeballs show you that. They got better. Margin of victory against teams one after another shows that. They got better. The metrics show that. But the team sheet doesn't show it because all they care about is top 50 wins and wins against the field. So the team sheet doesn't show that they got better. So what happens? They end up being a 10 seed. And you know who that screws? Oddly, not Wichita State nearly as much as other people, because Wichita State's fine. They're a 6.5-point favorite in their first round game over 7th-seeded Dayton. Who it screws is Dayton. You work like crazy to win an A-10 championship, get a 7th seed, now you're a 6.5-point underdog, your first round game. That's ridiculous. You know what else it screws? Kentucky, 2 seed, SEC champs, SEC tournament champs. Now you got to play a top 10 KenPom team in the round of 32 if Wichita State wins. We got a round of 32 game between the teams ranked, I believe, 4th and 8th. At KenPom, ridiculous. And it's all rooted in the way the selection committee evaluates teams. It's a rigged system against teams from leagues like the Missouri Valley Conference. And if we can all agree that the way you're doing things leads to these types of obvious mistakes, then we have to be able to agree that there's a better way to do it. There is no perfect way to do it, but there has to be a better way to do it because the way they're doing it right now leads to Wichita State being a 10, and that's just there's not a basketball person on the planet that thinks that makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess that the first thing I'm going to say is, you mentioned losing all these guys. Next year, Wichita State is not going to have to worry about that. They do not have a goddamn senior on this roster that actually plays. They are going to be fine next year for this. But this year, I totally agree with you. Do you think that, the best way to go about fixing this is, for me, we want to put analytics people, we want to put basketball people on the committee, people who actually know what they're doing when evaluating these teams, because whenever you have administrators on this committee, I kind of get that they have limited time and they have limited knowledge in terms of what these teams are in terms of quality. So I think that we just need to kind of restructure the committee in a way. Heck, I have advocated putting Las Vegas insiders on that committee that actually make lines and stuff, because those guys, I think, know the landscape of college basketball and who's good and who is not good better than anybody does. So how would you go about fixing the committee to make sure that a ridiculous number 8 Wichita State team going to a number 10 seed doesn't happen again?
I don't pretend to have a perfect answer for this. It's a complicated issue because I struggle with it, and here's why. KenPom, for instance, which is a great indicator of the quality of a college basketball team. As you know, it lines up pretty well with what Vegas thinks. And so if you got Las Vegas thinking a certain way and it's pretty much replicated by KenPom, like I don't know if this was Ken's intention. I've never talked to him about it, but he has come up with something that replicates whatever Vegas is using. It is very close to KenPom or vice versa.
Yeah.
And so it's an awesome way to replicate it's an awesome way to figure out on a neutral court who should win the game, who's the better team. The problem, of course, is that what it doesn't do is take resumes into account. It doesn't care whether you win or lose the game. And ultimately, this is a sport about wins and losses. So I struggle with this because, I'll just look at it right now. I believe the example I'll use is West Virginia. West Virginia is fifth at KenPom right now. What that essentially means is that without Vegas manipulating the line because of the way the public might bet one way or another, West Virginia should be favored over all but 4 teams in the country. That would suggest that West Virginia should be a 2 seed in this NCAA tournament. I don't think West Virginia should be a 2 seed in this NCAA tournament based off resume.
Right.
But they are based on their adjusted efficiency margin. So how do you balance those two things? And again, there's no perfect way to do it, but these are conversations they should be having. And I wouldn't mind if you ended up splitting the difference. In other words, if Wichita State resume looks like a 10-seed resume, but their metrics look like a 2-seed, like let's and you don't have to have a rule, like a hard rule. Well, then you just divide it, and what do you get? But like let's say, okay, 10-seed resume, 2-seed metric. Let's make them a 6. And maybe that wouldn't be perfect, but it would be better. Wichita State as a 6 seed makes way more sense than Wichita State as a 10, and it probably makes more sense than Wichita State as a 2. And so there's got to be a better way to do it. I think simply evaluating resumes on top 25 wins and top 50 wins and bad losses and stuff like that, it's a reasonably good way to pick the field. I think they do a pretty good job each year getting the teams right. Yeah. Tulsa last year being an obvious exception. But like this year, I think the 68 teams are the 68 teams that should be in it. But the seeding is all over the place every single year. And so I would come up with a different approach. I would get, it's not unlike a president, maybe not this president, but some presidents picking a cabinet. Like try to get as many different people from different backgrounds and with different perspectives in the room, and then let's just talk it through the same way you and I are talking it through right now. And I think you would end up making more sensible decisions because, again, to forget what it means for Wichita State. The real loser is Dayton. You are a 7 seed. You should be playing a 10 seed. You should be favored in your first game. They're not, and the reason they're not, it doesn't say anything about Dayton. It says everything about Wichita State, and it's a byproduct of that committee getting it wrong.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Let's move on to some of the better teams in the field. Who are some of the better teams you are most looking forward to seeing?
I love UCLA. I mean, I've got them picked to win the national championship, and I understand all their defensive flaws. And I'd be interested to hear what you think about this. I just think when they're clicking, when they're at their best, when UCLA's at its best, I think they're better than anybody else. I think they just outscore you. And I don't know that they're that much better. This is sort of interesting to me. The 1 seed should be, like, we can argue about whether Carolina should have been a 1 or not, whether Duke should have been a 1 or not, or Arizona a 1 or not. But in reality, the 1s and the 2s, forget about the resumes. Throw all that over to the side. I don't care about top 25 wins, top 50 wins. Just like erase everything. Now we're playing a tournament. I don't know that there's much difference between any of the 1s, like each other, or the 1s and the 2s. Or the 1s and 2s, and even some of the 3s, UCLA being a 3 that I would throw in that. In other words, usually there's a clear team that you'd go, I'll be shocked if that team doesn't make the Final Four. Like Kentucky in 2015, Kentucky in 2012, Carolina in 2009. Yep. You just look up and you go, I'll be blown away if that team doesn't make the Final Four. I don't know that there's any team that it'll shock me if they don't make the Final Four. Like I've got my Final Four picks like everybody else, but I got Duke going out of the East, but it could obviously easily be Villanova, and neither would be shocking. I've got Gonzaga going out of the West, But would anybody be surprised if Gonzaga is not there, but Arizona is? Of course not. A lot of people are picking Arizona. I think when you look at the top teams in the country, there is a clear group of top teams. I think it's about 8 or 9.
Yep.
But within those 8 or 9, I don't think there's any difference really between those 8 or 9. I think the very poor analogy I used on the podcast the other day when we were talking about this, Norlander said, that there's about 8 or 9 teams that are all sitting at the same table. And I said, sitting at a different table than everybody else. And I agree with that. And I took it a step further. And I said, in those 8 or 9 teams at that separate table, they're at a separate table, but they all got the same forks. They all got the same knives. Like, they have pretty similar tools. And so I don't think the tournament's wide open. Like, I don't think South Carolina's going to win it, or somebody like South Carolina could win it. But I do think within that group of 8 or 9, it is really wide open.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That's something I've been kind of saying for a while, too, since I saw the bracket. The top 9 do seem to be a little bit different, including UCLA in terms of quality. UCLA, you said that you kind of wanted to get my thoughts on UCLA. I am a little bit worried about their draw. I really like UCLA as well. I think they're an excellent basketball team, and they are, like you said, when they're rolling, and they are basically unstoppable offensively. The teams that have given UCLA some problems this year are teams that have big athletic wings who can kind of overpower their guards. Their guards aren't crazy athletic outside of Lonzo, like Bryce Alford, Isaac Hamilton, even TJ Leaf's not a crazy athlete. He's a good athlete, but he's not a crazy athlete. Cincinnati as a 6 seed is kind of the exact opposite. They have Jacob Evans, who's 6'6", Jerron Cumberland, who's 6'5". Gary Clark is one of the most underrated players in the country, in my opinion. 6'8", big guy who defends, athletic, really tough matchup for teams. Even Troy Copain is a 6'4" athlete who can create shots. So I don't like that matchup at all for UCLA. I think UCLA wins, but that's a difficult matchup for them. And then they obviously get Kentucky in the next round, followed by North Carolina likely in the Elite Eight, because I think North Carolina has the easiest road to the Elite Eight of any team in the entire field. So I just worry about UCLA's draw. I don't know if UCLA can put together 4 or 3 straight games really where they have to be basically at their highest level. And with the way that defense is a little bit inconsistent, I'm a little bit worried.
Well, that's the obvious problem is that, Cincinnati is capable. They're going to guard you. You're not going to guard them. Now, they might just stop themselves from scoring, although this Cincinnati team is better offensively than other Mick Cronin teams. It might be better than all other Mick Cronin teams. But, you're going to that's a fight. Unless you just get rolling, you look up and you got a 17, you're up 27-10, which they're capable of doing that to anybody. They basically did that to Kentucky very early in the year. So if you look up at 20, then it might be a thing where Cincinnati just can't come back and get you. But that I would project that to be a fight. And then, you probably got to beat Kentucky or Wichita State and North Carolina to get to the Final Four. I agree with you. It's a tough draw. There's some obvious hurdles, but somebody's got to win every region. And I love the pieces, and I love how gifted they are offensively. It is true that nobody who guards the way they guard has ever won a national championship, but almost nobody's ever been as explosive and talented as they have. As they are on the offensive end. You got a difference maker at point guard, pros at multiple positions. And it's interesting when you look at 2015 Duke, 2012 Kentucky. I'm not comparing these teams except for in this way. They were led by freshmen, kind of like UCLA is. But they also had upperclassmen, kind of like UCLA does. Yeah. That Kentucky team, I think the top 6 scorers, 3 of them were actually upperclassmen. You don't remember that because everybody remembers Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. But 3 of the top 6 were not freshmen. That Duke team, they had Quinn Cook and some other, upperclassmen pieces that helped, Tyus Jones and Jaleel Okafor and Justice Winslow. UCLA's got Thomas Welsh. They've got Bryce Alford. They've got Isaac Hamilton. And so I like the balance of experience within the roster. I love the talent. I love the shooters. I'm worried about the defense, but if you got to pick somebody, I went ahead and picked the Bruins to come out of there. Yeah.
You mentioned that you have Gonzaga in the Final Four. What do you like about Gonzaga?
I always like Gonzaga. I fall for this every year. And I don't mean fall for it like I'm an idiot for doing it. They are number 1 at KenPom. They have high major players. High level recruits. I did a long sort of breakdown of Gonzaga a few weeks ago, just sort of trying to disprove some of the myths about them. Like, Gonzaga always goes out early in the tournament. No, they don't, actually. Like, you know what? Like, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but basically
they've won 8 first-round games in a row.
8. Okay, so like by definition, they don't go out early. Michigan State hasn't done that. A lot of teams haven't done that, but Gonzaga has won 8 first-round games in a row. Beyond that, like people always say, I don't mean just early. I mean like earlier than they were supposed to. Not true. Right. If you go by their seed, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Here's the basic truth, or the absolute truth. Mark Few's teams, they on average do exactly what they were supposed to do. When they're a high seed, they usually go where they're supposed to go. When they're a low seed, they usually don't go where they're supposed, where they're not supposed to go. They're not overachievers in March. They're not underachievers in March. They are on average a team that does about what it's supposed to do in the NCAA tournament. People always say, and this is the one that drives me crazy, yeah, but Gonzaga's never been to a Final Four. Well, okay, true. How many times was Gonzaga supposed to get to a Final Four?
Yeah.
By definition, once. They've been a 1 seed once before this year. So what you really say when you're saying Gonzaga's never been to a Final Four, what you're really saying is, that one time Gonzaga was supposed to go to a Final Four, they didn't. That's what you're really saying. Yeah. And I'll take it a step further. Why didn't they? Well, they ran into a Wichita State team in the round of 32 that had 3 NBA players and made 13 three-pointers. We didn't know it at the time, what Wichita State was. That looked like, oh, wow, Gonzaga just lost to Wichita from the Missouri Valley. But what did we find out? First off, that team went to the Final Four, played the eventual national champion, Louisville, closer than anybody else in the NCAA tournament in the Final Four. They had 3 pros. 3 pros. Fred VanVleet, Ron Baker, and Clee Anthony Early. Again, we didn't know it at the time, but we know it now. And they hit 13 three-pointers. I've long said this. On that particular day, Wichita State, with 3 pros and 13 three-pointers in a 40-minute game, would have beaten anybody in the country. Louisville including Louisville. Yep. They would have beaten anybody. And so if you want to scream Gonzaga's never made the Final Four, what you're really screaming is Gonzaga didn't make it that one time they were a 1 seed. And what you're really screaming is Gonzaga ran into a team with 3 NBA players. And those 3 NBA players all played well, and they were part of a team that made 13 three-pointers. Yeah, well, like that's just – I remember, and I thought I'll never forget this. At the Final Four, I bumped into Mark. Like I was out on set somewhere, and he was just walking around, and I bumped into Mark Few. And like you don't know what to say to a coach. I mean, that's like career, like that's big career stuff. And it was like it seemed like an opportunity squandered. And I said, "Yo, man, I hate what happened, but like, you had a great year." And he said, "We had a wonderful year." He said, "Like, we played a team, they hit 13 three-pointers on us. What are we going to do?" Like, he chalked it up to like, what did you want me to do? Yeah. We played a team, they were good.
They made 13
threes. He is the best at that. The fact that Mark Few has never made a Final Four seems to bother other people way more than it bothers Mark Few. And I don't mean that he doesn't care. Of course he cares. But he also has a good understanding of why he's never been to a Final Four. First off, he's the head coach at freaking Gonzaga. Like the idea that you can knock – think about that for a second. The idea that we live in a world where you can knock the Gonzaga coach for never going to a Final Four? Like, wow. What? Right. Like, can you imagine like we're sitting here saying, that coach at San Diego's never gone to a Final Four. What? Like, what are we – like, really? That's where we're setting the bar? I mean, he's at Gonzaga. If you've been the coach at North Carolina for a long time, you've never gone to a Final Four, let's talk about that. You've been a coach at Kentucky for a long time, never gone to a Final Four, let's talk about that. The idea that the Gonzaga coach is beaten over the head for a lack of a Final Four is bananas to me. Either way, I would love to see them get there because it would eliminate that conversation forever. And like it's funny to me. I was doing a radio interview with somebody yesterday, and they said, yeah, Gonzaga's never done it. And I said, like, I live in Memphis, and the Grizzlies have never made the NBA Finals. And that's a reasonable thing to point out while trying to make the point that they're not going to make it this year as well. And here's why. Because it's the same guys. For the most part, it's Mike Conley and Zach Randolph and Tony Allen and Marc Gasol. Right. And so if you've watched them for 6 straight years make the playoffs but not make the NBA Finals, you can reasonably conclude that same group of guys isn't going to make the NBA Finals this year. Well, the Gonzaga, it's literally not a single player who's going to start in the round of 64 game played for them last year in the NCAA tournament. Not one. It's a whole new group of guys. They're wearing Gonzaga uniforms, but there ain't nothing about Gonzaga's past that got anything to do with them. And so the metrics love them. I think they're great. I don't know if they will get to a Final Four or win a national championship, but 100% believe they're capable of doing both.
Yeah, I mean, my thing with Gonzaga this year is like another thing that like you hear is like, oh, they're just like the classic overachieving mid-major. Like how talented are they really? Mark Few's a great coach, but like how good is this group? Well, they have a like former McDonald's All-American point guard that went to Washington and then transferred to Gonzaga. They have a high major shooting guard at Jordan Matthews, who was at Cal last year. They have a 4-star point guard in Josh Perkins. They have a kid in Jonathan Williams, who was from your neck of the woods in Memphis, who ended up at Missouri as like a 4-star prospect. They have Killian Tilly, who's a 4-star prospect out of France, who a lot of people think is going to play in the NBA. They have Shemek Karnowski, who's like a 23-year-old senior who's really good. And then finally, they have Zach Collins, who's projected right now as a first-round pick, basically everywhere after being McDonald's All-American. So, like,
that's the thing.
That is the craziest level of talent for a mid-major that I can remember.
Right. Well, and even like it's comparable talent, if not better talent, than what Villanova had last year.
Yes.
I mean, I went back and looked at it. Like, I looked at all the recruiting rankings, like, and all the NBA projections. Like, you look at it from one perspective and the other. You can reasonably argue Gonzaga is more talented than the reigning national champions.
I in fact would argue that, by the way.
Right. Okay. So to look at Gonzaga and say, well, they that's West Coast Conference. No, this team would be great in any league. And the other reason I root for them, like genuinely, like I want Gonzaga to make the Final Four, is because no other schools, certainly power conference schools, have the NCAA tournament used as an indictment against them if it doesn't go as planned. In other words, last year, Virginia was a 1 seed and didn't make the Final Four. And there weren't people screaming, saying, see, Virginia wasn't as good as you said. It's just like, Virginia got into a game with Syracuse, and there was this wild comeback, and Malachi Richardson went bananas, and what are you going to do? Too bad for Tony Bennett, but like nobody says Virginia sucked or Virginia was overrated. Yeah. Same thing with Kansas. Kansas lost short of the Final Four again as a 1 seed. Nobody, I don't think. I mean, listen, when I say nobody, obviously there's somebody out there who said this, but for the most part, you don't hear people going, "Yeah, see, Kansas was overrated. They never as good as you idiots thought," because they were 1 seed and got stopped short of the Final Four. But if it happens to Gonzaga, it is always used as an indictment of their entire season. People say, see, Gonzaga overrated again. They weren't that good. Nobody else is held to that standard, that if you're a 1 seed, you have to go to the Final Four, or else we scream that you were overrated from the start. No other schools are held to that standard. It's just Gonzaga. It's just Wichita State when they're seated highly. And like that's A, dumb, but B, frustrating. And so for a whole bunch of reasons, like the best story for me personally, in terms of like what I would like to see happen over the next couple of weeks, I would like to see Gonzaga go to a Final Four. I'd like to see Mark get to his first Final Four.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. That's something I'm rooting for pretty intently as well. Last question before I let you get out of here. The ACC, I think, was probably the strongest, deepest conference in the country this season, and I'm struggling to like put an ACC team in the Final Four for some reason right now. Like, I have Kentucky in the Final Four just because I really like this Kentucky group a little bit more than I like UNC. Louisville's a 2 seed in the same region as like Kentucky or Kansas and all of these crazy offensive teams. Like, is it possible that we could end up having a situation where the ACC is super successful going to the Sweet 16 and super successful throughout the entire year, and we like don't have a Final Four team? Like, that seems dumb to me. Like, am I crazy for that?
No, of course it's possible. I mean, like I just said, there are teams there's a group of teams that are better, and you agree with me, that are better than everybody else. It's about 8 or 9. We could maybe make it 10 or shorten it to 7, but either way, it's right around that number. But none of those teams within that group are that much better than everybody else. Like in 2015, I keep going back to that year, but it proves my point. There was a group of great teams. Wisconsin was great. Duke was great. Kentucky was great. Like, whatever the group, it's usually about 6 or 7 teams where you go, that's 6 or 7. They're better than everybody else. So, like, let me just look at 2015 real quick. Let's see who it would have been. It would have been Kentucky, Wisconsin, Duke, Arizona, I think would have belonged in that group. Maybe Villanova belonged in that group. Maybe Virginia, maybe Gonzaga. Let's just say it was 7. That's the 7. You'd say those 7 are better than everybody else. And then you would have said, but Kentucky's a little bit better than everybody else. Like that 7 is separate from the rest of the field, but Kentucky's just a little bit better, or maybe significantly better than everybody else. Now, of course, they lost in the national semifinals to Wisconsin, but like still going into that tournament, it was pretty clear to everybody, whether you use your eyeballs or the metrics, like Kentucky was significantly better than, or obviously better than everybody else. I think they still have the top adjusted efficiency margin in the history of KenPom, even though they weren't national champions. And so my point is, like, you look at these, and like I said, there's a group of 8 or 9 that are all better than everybody else, I think. But within that group of 8 or 9, I don't even, like, you and I could completely disagree on who we think the best 5 are in that group of 8 or 9. And neither of us would be wrong. It's just like comes down to, like, what do you like and not like? Like, I might like UCLA best. You might like UCLA 8th. But my point is, there's not much difference between them. So, North Carolina is in that group. It could also lose in a regional final to Kentucky or UCLA or Wichita, whatever. Duke is in that group. It could also lose to Villanova in a regional final easily. Louisville is in that group. It could also lose, in a regional final to a comparable team easily. And so, I could see a scenario where we got 0 ACC teams in the Final Four. I personally have Duke going, but if you had Villanova going instead of Duke, obviously there's nothing stupid about that. So it'll be interesting to watch the way this unfolds.
Yeah. No, I've been like pounding the drum for the ACC all season as like maybe the best league ever, given just like the sheer talent level in that league this year. And I like keep finding myself, I'm just like, man, I am struggling to put a team in the Final Four. It is something I'm going to have to figure out over the course of the next 2 days. Gary, tell the people where they can find your work, where they can see your face coming up here. Are you going to be in Atlanta or are you going to be in New York?
I'm going to be in New York. I'm supposed to fly there tomorrow. Wish me luck, because there's a blizzard there. But the plan would be to be in studio in New York, CBS Sports Network on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then, of course, back home for a couple of days, back to New York, back home a couple of days, then down to Phoenix for the Final Four. So we'll be doing basically programming all day long, like pregame shows, press conferences, like when you are watching the NCAA tournament and you want to see Roy Williams' press conference in full, like we're going to be carrying those things and then reacting to them. So if you're watching the tournament, like, listen, I understand. I'm going to be watching the tournament as well. But if there's a particular press conference you want to see or instant reaction analysis from a really good group of people, we will be, myself being the exclusion there, we will be on CBS Sports Network all day and all night throughout the NCAA tournament. Of course, you can read CBSSports.com and find me on Twitter at Gary Parrish, CBS.
All right. Well, GP, I'm looking forward to seeing you down in Phoenix, man. I'll be down there, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit. This has been the Game Theory Podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Android, whatever app you use to get podcasts. I'm sure that we're up there by now. We are sponsored by SeatGeek, by MyBookie, the 2 most important things you need to enjoy your NCAA tournament experience. We'll be back tomorrow with another great podcast, but until then, we will talk soon. Bye.